listening to ProveText, a GlossaHouse podcast by Dr. T. Michael W. Halcomb, Dr. Frederick J. Long, Dr. Mario Melendez, Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and J. M. Smith. Welcome and enjoy.
Welcome to ProveText. I'm Michael Halcomb, and this is an interesting episode. We've never done anything like this. We're just doing a roundtable. So we're here in San Antonio, Texas for the annual AAR SBL meeting. That's American Academy of Religion?
Yes. Yeah, and Institute for Biblical Research, IBR, and
Society of Biblical Literature. Yeah, you know that. So we got Fred Long here, and he's a regular on the podcast. Nobody else. Well, JM's a regular on the podcast. Yeah. You guys know him. Nobody else. This is Christina, Fred's wife. We got Lisa Kutras, or your other.
Kutras enough.
All right, Kutras is fine. And then we have Andrew Kutras, who's also with GlossaHouse. So
brother and sister.
Yeah, brother and sister.
Brother doctor.
Brother doctor.
Thought it would be interesting to just have a roundtable. I have no idea where this is going to go. I don't have anything planned. So I guess I'll throw a question out there, and then we'll just riff on it and see what happens. So Lisa, your first SBL.
Yes.
What do you think?
Books.
Books. Lots of books.
Oh, the books. It's like the mecca of books. So better.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a great place for books. It's like waking up in a dream and everything is 50% off.
All right.
So there's about 6,000 to 10,000 scholars from all over the world. Literally every continent is represented. All kinds of disciplines. Christians, non-Christians.
There were some penguins.
Yeah, there might be. Yeah. So 6 out of the 7. So just to give some context, and so they're all kind of converging in San Antonio, and there's about 80 book vendors maybe, and institutions and religious sects setting up these booths. This is a big hall, and so we're talking about all the books that are.
And you guys are right next to the
Coffee?
No, on the other side, but yes.
Hare Krishna?
The Hindu, there is a Hindu book.
Yeah.
So it's all different religions and all different
places.
Yeah, and then right across from the JPS booth. Publication side.
Yeah. So Christina, this is your second time at SBL. What do you think? What have you observed so far? Maybe put it in a sentence. I don't know. Anything's fair game.
Or a song. That's his left.
Ooh, interpretive dance.
Christina is a professional singer. Yeah. So
more confusing than anything else.
more confusing. What's confusing about it?
It's just a different world.
Different world. Okay. Yeah, well, you're involved in like lots of conversations about things that you wouldn't normally be involved in. I mean, you've been going to like your Fred's papers. I assume you're sitting in there listening to some other papers. Yeah, that'd be really odd, I would think. Right, because they're speaking at a super high level.
Yeah. No idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like if you were talking about music theory, I'd be probably lost, right? Yeah, so your second one's kind of confusing for you. It's like books. What about you, James? This is your second time here.
Second time. Yeah, for me, so I'm not a total like deer in the headlights this time, like I was the first time. And it's fun for me. One is just getting to hang out with you guys, like more than just in passing at the booth. That's cool. We're actually here together at the house, and getting to I met a number of people last year, and over the past year I've built those relationships through Disciple Dojo, and I've had a number of them on for episodes and talk about the work and everything. So now when I can walk into a room and there's a couple of faces that I know, and I wander through not cocktail hour. Well, I guess they had some cocktails, but the receptions, and not just walk around like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. Like I can.
Like me.
Yeah. So but you're at least an academic. I'm, a popularizer. So I don't feel as much imposter syndrome this year.
Okay.
As I did last year. Still just a little bit.
Let's talk about it. This is like something I talk about a lot. And I can kind of be cynical about this Uh, I think in the past, probably around 10,000 people were coming to this on average. I think the attendance is down maybe 1,000 or two, maybe 8,000. But I always use this analogy of like if you could zoom out and look at a map and see where the largest concentration of like ego is at any one point in time. Like during SPL, the like map would just like have the largest dot there. But also, if you zoomed out and you looked at the same map and tried to pinpoint where the largest amount of insecurity is at one time, it would be the same exact spot.
Yeah.
So there's like this overlap of like ego and insecurity, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't
Well,
know.
my experience, so the first conversation I had with a peer academic, Oxford trained, this guy, I'm not going to mention his name, but I mean, he's a great scholar. But the first thing we talked about, he brought it up, was the insecurity here. And we just were talking honestly with each other. I mean, this guy is a top shelf scholar, Oxford trained, and we had this really honest conversation. So that was really interesting to begin the conference talking about that. And I said, so that was good. That we all, just that some of my students are wondering how to pronounce this or that, and he said, "Oh, just pronounce it with confidence," And so, so I think we just have to be honest with each other. We try to do our best, but it's we're not alone. Other people are feeling the same way. They're feeling like imposter.
Nobody knows how to pronounce anything.
Yeah, so you just got to do it boldly. There's multiple pronunciations: Anglicized pronunciation, there's Roman, Latin. So. Yeah.
Well, you do realize that PhD is just 4 years of undetected competence.
Undetected.
An Oxford scholar told me that.
Undetected. So everyone's kind of flying under the radar, trying not to get noticed.
Yep. Trying not to get discovered by their advisor. So they don't actually know anything.
Wow, that's
interesting. So I don't know, Andrew JM, what do you think about that? The egoism overlap with sort of the insecurity or imposter. I don't know.
So when I say imposter syndrome, what I'm meaning very specifically, I do not have higher than an MDiv. Like that's the highest of my degree.
It's still a postgraduate.
It is barely, but it was not even an academically based MDiv. I was just trying to get to seminary and get out and start doing local church ministry stuff. So it's I say it tongue in cheek because I always say non-academic or academic popularizer, somebody with one foot in the world, I can absolutely detect what you're talking about. And I know enough about academia and the mannerisms, even when people are presenting papers and asking questions that aren't really questions, they're just trying to get their views. It's
there's
very
a question in
transparent.
there somewhere. You're making a point.
Yeah.
I thought about doing I have a comment, but I'm going to ask more with a question.
That would be amazing.
Switching up the paradigm a little.
That would be hilarious. I would laugh.
I might get. I don't know how that would be received, but it's like, when the ego stuff comes, I want to parody it.
Yeah. That's the most appropriate response to a lot of high ego stuff. Is you have to be like, can we all just recognize that this is ridiculous?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, it's important to, I think, for those of you that are seasoned academics, to not get cynical because
everybody looks at me.
No, because what is going on, what has become routine for many people in academia, to those on the outside, they still look to academia for professional like
Guidance.
competence, commentary, insights, guidance. It's like peer review. I mean, there's a reason that exists, so it can be easy on the inside to see how the sausage is made and be like, this really is. But it actually really is. When you have a room full of people that are passionately interested in a topic that's super minute, you're getting, you really are getting high level interaction, even if it's done to people who are not high level communicators.
There's different types of discourse going on there. There's people who are trying to climb up the ladder, they're trying to network in a way or position themselves
Yeah.
But then there's other people who are like going a deep dive into something, and they get into this nerdy mode, and that's really innocent, I think, you know. And I guess like with an auto mechanic, if there were a bunch of auto mechanics around, and they had a special time of training, you know, they're going to get into that geeky mode, like, oh, well, you do it that way. I've always used this and crank it this way, and oh, well, what about this product? And you know, most of us wouldn't understand that, but I'm glad that they have those conversations because it makes the safe drive safe apart.
Yeah. I had a scholar, I can't remember exactly who it was. I guess I wouldn't drop the name if I did, but somebody here told me, I feel like such a fraud being here. I don't remember who it was, but that's sort of been knocking around in my head. And yeah, I know it kind of bothers me. Like, I feel like it should be a place to, in a way, come and explore a bit.
Yeah.
But why feel like a fraud?
It's a high performer. That almost every high performer has in Boston.
Yeah. And let me bring in that exact same thing happens in the world of jiu-jitsu. When I go to a jiu-jitsu seminar with and I train every year with like 5 or 6 world champions, like multiple time world champions, the best of the best of the best. And I go in there, and I'm a black belt. I've been doing it for, coming up on 15, 16 years. And I go in there and I sit and listen to them break down a technique and answer some questions and I'm like, oh, I don't know anything. Like, because you see, the saying is there are levels to this game. And so I think people in scholarship, I think it's very similar. People are working so hard and they're like, yeah, I kind of know some stuff. But then they actually encounter people who really do have exponentially more knowledge about a thing, not necessarily raw, but about one area. When you're in the presence of somebody who recognizes their brilliance in something that's very specific, it can make you feel it's humble. And that's when you need people come in and be like, dude, you really do know a whole lot. You're just comparing yourself to like the cream of the crop in the field. And it's a bullshit for that. If you didn't feel inadequate, there's something wrong, I would say.
So I had another conversation today with a senior scholar, and I'm not going to mention his name. Great guy, humble, but this is what he said. It's like, I am humble. There's so much when I get to this point. I mean, he's like 70. Well, studied under a great person, University of Chicago. He's like, I realize how much I don't know.
Yeah.
So that, and I think that's how it should be. It should be humbling. Like, when we get these degrees, there is so much out there for us to understand. And it really should humble us, and so that we can like let's talk and learn together. I'm going to do this little expertise here, and these are questions I have. And we enter into a dialogue, and then because we have these little niches, we can't do it all, and even though we might try to, but we have to rely on each other's perspective, especially. Like, how many people know about as much about Apollo in Asia Minor?
It's funny that you say that because I went to one talk tonight, and I'm listening to her talk about her book. I'm like, yeah, you're not telling me anything new. But then I was thinking, like, well, you know what? I'm glad you're getting this stuff out because that's kind of what I was trying to do. So, okay, good for you. Because I was starting to get jealous. Like, no.
Yeah, and that's frustrating too when you know something that someone else does it. What you could have done if you would have spent 2 years cranking it out. That's hard.
Like, the point is getting out there, and people maybe will start thinking differently.
Yeah. Does this happen in music? Do you have these kinds of things in performance and theater? Same kinds of issues? Can you tell us about that? What's that like?
Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but have you ever dealt with that personal? Like, I feel like a fraud.
Oh yeah.
Like, who am I to be doing this? Yeah. You were just teaching in Italy. You were talking a little bit about some of the stress of that. Was that creeping in there or no?
No. No, but it can happen plenty, especially if put on the spot that I know that people are also watching, like, what can she do? And then it definitely creeps in, or not creeps in, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
The anxiety of performance.
Yeah.
And if you don't audition well, you don't get the job, right? That
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that happens for us trying to get that weird craft position, and that job interview, and then teaching in front of people, at a very stressful time.
I don't know if I've ever felt like a fraud in the guild. Like that. I don't know if I've ever had that. I've certainly been frustrated a lot. And there have been times where I feel like maybe not a fraud, but I'm not part of the clique. I'm not part of the group, the popular group, which is I've come to like terms with that in my own way. To realize, it's gonna be me regardless. But the fraud thing, I don't know, that kind of like just hit me in a certain way when I heard that. I don't remember who said it, but I feel like such a fraud being here. The word said to me.
Well, you have to know, are they being hyperbolic?
Yeah.
Or are they genuinely, because it could be a problem if they genuinely feel like I'm a fraud. Because I'd be like, well, what have you been lying about? But if they're just being used in hyperbole, then I could very much relate to that.
Or like imposter.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've heard that so much when people feel like a fraud with academics. Like that's such a common refrain.
Tell us more about that. Like
Where,
what context?
It was just imposter syndrome. You just feel like the more you get into your doctorate, the more you realize how much more other scholars know, how much more you don't know. Because as you're digging into it, you realize there's so much that you can't know yet. And then you go and you try to teach undergrads, and like, well, remember, you know more about this than them, so don't try to give them all the contingencies of it could be this, this, or this, and this person thinks this person disagrees. And so the more you dig into this knowledge, the more unsettling it is when you realize how much you don't know. And then when you know how much you don't know, you feel like
I mean, that's precisely what PhD teaches you. It teaches you how much you know, but like it teaches you the limits of your knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know all of this. I know this and nothing else.
But even in that, there's so much more you can do that's not done.
Sure.
And there's so much that's missing that that all these things are not certain. And that just you can't just make the statement that these things are true when it's kind of uncertain. And
And where can you admit that ambiguity? Can you admit it in the church setting? I think a lot of pastors have to preach it a certain way, and they can't say, well, there's 2 or 3 good options here. I'm leaning for this option, But then there's like this false sense of I gotta know what it means kind of way. I'm wondering if people kind of get stuck in thinking I need to know for certain, but I don't think we need to. I think we can say there's ambiguity here, but I wonder if we put a lot of pressure that I ought to know better, but I don't.
I also think there's a difference between we're getting into like epistemology or whatever, but I think there's a difference between claiming to know something for certain and then like as a preacher preaching that with conviction. I have no problem with people that giving multiple views or saying this is just my perspective. Or I was just preaching on the end of Mark 9, and there's this unnamed man who can't perform an exorcism, and the disciples are saying, we told him to stop because he's not following us. We don't know who that person is. The text never says. Nevertheless, like I gave my hypothesis, but I also said John Wesley, he thought he knew who it was, right? And so I think that giving them options is fine, but then also saying I may not know, but here's my perspective, and doing that with some conviction,
Laying out some evidence.
based on my present level of understanding. Like here's what I think.
So demonstrating, inquiring, seeking evidence, laying out evidence, and also being humble about it.
Yeah, I was taught early on in my ministry, my first full-time ministry, the pastor taught me that phrase, at my present level of understanding. And that's always stuck with me. So I can preach or speak here with conviction, with the sort of disclaimer that this is my present level of understanding. And I've also done this thing where I've had to come back as a preacher and say, a few weeks ago I preached this, and I think I was wrong. That's something I haven't really seen a lot of in the guild. This once you put something out there in a paper, it's forever written in stone. Maybe you guys would think people change their minds or.
Well, in fact,
Yeah.
no. It was actually kind of fun. I guess because, like I said to some of you, it's like I'm not really trying to play the game anymore. I'm just trying to do what I want, which I think helps me be more authentic.
Yes.
So on the paper I was given on Tuesday, I had an understanding. I was reading it one way. I was reading it as 3, but it could also mean plaza. And so on the papers that came before, he argued that it was meaning plaza, or like instead of streets of gold, maybe a plaza of gold with a fountain or a river in the middle, things like that. Given stuff like that. So when I came up with my papers, I think he's right. I was going with this reading, but I think he's right on this. He's convinced. I don't think much about what I said, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah. To enter into those conversations, even on the spot. So it makes me think about what's the solution. Like if this is the problem, then what is the solution to it? Why does this happen in that?
The imposter syndrome.
Yeah, why does the imposter syndrome happen, and how would it change? How does it need to change?
Well, I would give one solution, looking at just the meetings that I sat in today and yesterday and listening to it. I wish there was a way to shift the focus from presenting papers to talking face to face. And there were numerous sessions that they literally, a brilliant paper is being read, but the guy is having to speed read it so that there's enough time, not just to finish the session, but then maybe have a couple of questions. I think that does everybody a service. I think if you have the number of presenters in a session and not have 4 presenters, you have 2 presenters, and then you have half of the session devoted to them talking to each other and people in the room. Then it becomes actual talking rather than just what it could be of posturing. Because posturing is like, I got to present my thing, and then I'll field some questions to show that I've really done the work and competent, and they're trying to show off, and I'm trying to show off. It's very performance. Whereas, and not all, but just a couple of the sessions lend themselves to that, and not at all. And I was just sitting there thinking, it would be so good to just save half these papers for another time, and just talk to each other and let us listen, talking to each other.
And I think it wasn't the scholastic medieval time that they do education that way, where they had scholars and they would adopt a position that wasn't even their own, but for the sake of argument, they'd pair off with a colleague and they'd go at it. And they would argue in front of people, and that was like what they learned from. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Some of the best sessions I've been to was like an open Bible study, and they really opening up text. That's really rare. And you spend time, one person positing, and then there's questions, and then going back and forth. You really soak in the text. So I totally agree with the model of half an hour paper.
Especially when people don't write their papers to be heard. They write it to be read. It's just, it can be like, even if it's really good material.
It took me a while to learn that. No, like write it like I'm talking. Wow. Yeah.
Especially for those of us listening.
Yeah. It's huge. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna use practice there. I think this. Seems like those are very.
Yeah. Your sentences will get very much shorter. Yeah. And but I don't think that's how writing should be. When you're writing a book, I think it should be, I want to read a book. But oratory is a completely different skill.
The opposite of Meatberg. It says, I hate reading books. It's just like so many words.
Many words.
It never lets up. It's just page after page of words.
So good. I'm gonna give you guys have Young Nate Margaretson. No. He's one of the best, most popular stand-up right now. Entirely clean. His whole act is like intentional about it. I don't know if he might be. He's very Christian adjacent. A couple of the guys on his podcast are openly Christian, and I think. But
he grew up going to church.
yes, well, his parents, and But yeah, listen to Nate Barnett. He's got specials on that.
We got to see him live several months ago. Really fun.
He's so very dry. Very
Throw some
understanding.
pictures in there. Let me get my head above water. Yeah. So we got cutting. I mean, that's really practical. Cutting sessions in half and having more face-to-face discussion. What else? I think
That might make papers better too because it's more collective.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, see, right now though, they're trying to have representation.
Right. Ethnicity. Yeah. That's a whole other discussion because that moves away from the merit of a paper and the merit of research to something that maybe it has nothing to do with the quality of the research.
Or maybe having more options, having that as one model that is represented, and then having a model alongside a different section.
Different section.
So
Yeah.
you go to more.
Yeah.
So the Rhetoric of Religious Antiquities, they have 3 sessions, so 3 2-hour sessions. One of them is a practical, where it's more of a session. One of it, and that David Bauer went to that one, and he said it was the best session I've ever been to at SVL.
Well,
So we had that exposition and time for question and room and stage talk. And
This is how all the performance criticism worked out. The deck is open like that. Yeah.
I was gonna say one of the things that has tripped me up is the lack of power. They're just not available for a lot of seconds.
Yeah.
And I do not learn by listening. I learn by seeing.
Yeah.
And so it's so hard for me to follow the papers as they're being read. Whereas even if they read them and there was a PowerPoint with the main point, I feel like I do better.
Yeah.
And in fact, the one I really enjoyed today had a PowerPoint, and it was so much better.
And they can be so clever the way that people go through and you can blend images and you can. One guy had a guy flipping a coin, a coin presentation. So the Greek presentation that I gave, no video projection. So we're talking about the same passage, and I thought I was going to have it, so I had to just talk, and it was really disruptive,
Yeah, they should tell us that ahead of time.
Yes.
There were a lot of presenters that thought they would have it on.
It's expensive. I think for the room to have it was like $600.
If they're not going to
for like a 2-hour session.
if they're not going to pay for that, they should let us know, or maybe charge us less.
I think even
Have a
behind
handout, maybe.
Well, you come prepared with
Yeah.
handout.
Yeah.
If you knew.
Mhm.
But then you don't always know your room size.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in rooms that were like 20 people, and then there's other rooms that hold 100 people. You don't know.
And you come there with 15.
Yeah, or
But
50.
those 15 people are better off for it.
Yeah, they are.
I think something interesting too. I mean, at least in the doctoral side of things, that imposter syndrome, it can be sort of baked into all of the pressure to be presenting, the pressure to be writing, the pressure to be climbing and making a name for yourself, the pressure to be butt kissing, like all of that stuff. I think it's very toxic
Making flash.
and unhealthy in a lot of ways.
That's the kind of stuff they don't really deal with in the doctoral world. But that's the kind of stuff they should really deal with. Like, okay, this is how you're gonna feel. You're okay. Everybody feels this way. You work there, it just means you're a high performer around other high performers who are specialized in things that are similar but not the same.
At our booth today, I saw Trimper Longman, and he's standing there looking at some of our books, and there's probably an undergrad or an MDiv student or something like that. He turns and he introduced himself, Trimper Longman, and he's like, "You came to our university, I don't know, a couple years ago, and you gave an excellent talk on Proverbs." And Trimper was so generous towards this young guy. Well, thank you. I'm very pleased to have done that, and I appreciate you saying the kind words. And from sort of a high caliber scholar like that, to like watch that interaction, it's kind of moving for me. So because you can see a lot of the opposite, the sort of highfalutin, like back away, who are you kind of thing.
I'm a celebrity here.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, he's at the top, right? Like, and it was really cool.
I think I've seen a change, honestly. in our field. I don't think you have as much arrogance as you used to a
Think
decade
so?
ago. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I think so. But I don't know if I'm seeing it differently. Maybe it's just because the sessions I'm not at or whatever. But I do think there's kind of a change. I don't know. Because some of that is just not as tolerated. I don't know. In our day and
Maybe
age,
they've all
it's been
retired.
more- Maybe. I think it's it could be a little bit of a generation.
They were all retired in COVID-19.
Speaking of 10 years ago, this is my 10th anniversary of STL.
Wow.
Yeah, 2013 in Baltimore.
So
My
do
first
you
one.
notice any?
I feel like the paper, there are not as many interesting papers.
People are like trying to, they're scraping for ideas.
This is,
or
I'm
not?
looking at,
Where the
this may
trends
be
have
totally
changed.
me, but I look through the catalog of things and just like, don't care, don't care, don't care, don't
Some
care.
more obscure stuff.
Or just stuff I like I was telling you the other day, the Polis Ecclesia one, that was the one that's like, I know I'm going to get something good there every time, and it's not there anymore. And I'm just, some of the other ones I like rhetoric and religious antiquity or the ritual stuff, it's really hit or miss to me whether or not I'm interested in
They
stuff
used
at
to be
all.
better.
It's become very ideological, fractured. A lot of special interests.
Yeah.
A lot of special interests, especially around the identity stuff. But I don't go to sessions hardly at all anymore unless I'm giving a talk. I can't remember the last paper. So
I really like the numismatic section today. It's flying kind of high. They were, the Greek one was kind of expecting something different, and we didn't have the dialogue. And in fact, the organizer said, "Yeah, we're all different. But only you did what we were thinking and hoping everyone would do,
wow.
which was to talk about pretext and kind of." And so I want to brainstorm with her about how can we. She said, maybe help me reword the fall paper so that we can have that engagement. Where I think it's like a dialogue. It's just like I read this verse this way. I think that give someone 1 minute, explain what you're saying there, what questions you have. Kind of like what we do with the podcast and questions.
Yeah.
Well, let him answer.
Yeah, give them some time to answer. So how will this change? I think it's kind of mentored. I think it has to be modeled by the faculty person has to model this kind of ability. I think students would have a chance to present these papers and get experience kind of getting in there and not getting ruffled and just kind of doing the best.
So JM, would you ever propose a paper to present here, or?
I don't think I have anything to contribute that way. I don't think I have I don't think I have anything that I would ever say about scripture that somebody hasn't already said better. I think I would, if they were asking, hey, we're going to do a session about getting it from academia to the unwashed masses.
And they do have sessions like that.
I would happily contribute to something like
You know what? I've got a project that me and you probably contribute on that you would probably.
Yeah, I'm all for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
To do. I mean, I have a few things that I feel like if I had to keep on something, it would probably be this. But I don't have a burning desire to publish anything or to be published. What's that?
Bruce Lee?
What about?
Yeah.
Well, I do have a book about how Bruce Lee shaped my memory, but it's an ebook.
I'll tell you my idea later.
Yeah, I remember you
Yeah.
talking about this.
It's a fun one. Yeah.
All right.
I'm ready to get back to work.
Right on. Well, so Lisa, you've presented at other conferences and given talks.
It's been keynote
Yeah.
speaking,
Yeah.
haven't you?
What-
I mean, because you have fans here.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I've seen 2 or 3 times. People's like, "Oh, I got work."
And I mean, you've gotten on the podcast twice since you've been here.
I know.
It's like I'm the Bible scholar, and people are saying my name. Like, hey, you know Lisa Kutcher? Right there. Go
You're
talk to her.
You've done a good job, sort of helping
No, it's been fun.
encourage like some attention her way.
Well, I know ride your coattail.
That's all right.
I see what's going on here.
Well, you're the reason I got the one.
Well, there you go.
Wow.
Anyways, would you present here, or is that of interest or not really?
Yeah, actually, it is. It would be interesting to see what it would be. I mean, I'd probably do Tolkien and logos.
Oh, there was one I was going to tell you about it earlier. They have a film section,
Yeah.
and that's actually got some really interesting stuff there. So,
But yeah, the films that I saw listed weren't of my interest.
well,
But
then do a good one.
yeah.
In the Bible and media, probably check out that.
Okay. Is that SBL? Yeah. I'm in AAR, but I think I'm going to move over.
And look at IBR too.
Yeah.
They do culture.
Well, this is kind of what happens when we come to this conference. We sit around and talk and nerd out, and just giving you a view into this. We're all in this house. I guess you call it the GlossaHouse.
This is the GlossaHouse.
This is what I've been calling it.
So it's cool. There's been 9 or 10 of us here, and a lot of y'all, well, all of y'all have been helping the booth at some degree or at some level. So, yeah, I appreciate that. And hey, thanks for watching. Thanks, Jay, and everybody else. Check out Disciple Dojo. Check out Lisa's book again on Tolkien. Check out Fred's stuff on GlossaHouse. Check out Christine's music. I don't find that anywhere, but and Andrew, what can they check out? Your dissertation.
Yeah,
What's the title?
Chaos and Clairvoyance. Apollo and Asia Minor and in the Apocalypse.
Is it searchable on online databases?
It is on ProQuest and it's on my academia website, available for download with all the typos.
All right. I love that you had to like pause on the subtitle for a second.
Yeah, no, it's going to be academic.
And who was on your committee? I mean, you had Witherington on your committee, right?
And you,
Yeah.
and then David De Silva was
Was the
like there.
examiner. Yeah, I mean, that's a top.
Yeah. Fred included himself in the top notch crew.
Yeah, I'm talking about those guys.
Well, thanks for watching. Share this, like it, and yeah, we appreciate it. Until next time, aloha.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? GlossaHouse can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, GlossaHouse offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. GlossaHouse, language resources for the global community.